Hello everyone, Jalen here from TBIJalen Infinity doing my pros and cons on Purgatory Nights. One thing before this video is done, before I start this video, is I have to give a big disclaimer to Joel, aka Hunter Surge, for his basics on Purgatory Nights. If you guys want to know how to build a Purgatory Night deck properly, because this is just a list of every single Purgatory Night supported card over here, it's not really a deck. I don't really build the Purgatory Night deck, but Joel knows how to. At least he's gotten advice on how to, or something. I don't know the details, but either way, you should definitely watch the basics in case you want to know how to make a Purgatory Night deck after I do a review of the Purgatory Night deck. So I'll leave a link down in the description below at the top of the description box. So if you want to check out his video, please do. And if you want to see more content from him, because he does plenty of basics and other videos, please subscribe to Hunter Surge. Just doing that for you, Hunter, if you're watching. But without further ado, I want to get onto the pros and cons of Purgatory Nights. One thing that has to be just addressed is the effect inhibitors. But what I mean by this are the cards that get off your effects, which are, in terms of your monsters, Demio Sword, which is the greatest one, who restands as in the battle phase in order to when you destroy another Purgatory Knight, or Lance, who gains another crit. They do say you may only use this ability once per turn, but similar to, and I'm going to show you guys, Return from the Underworld, you can set multiple Return from the Underworld. This ability may only be used once per turn. Now, what they mean by this, when they word it like this, is that, both of them, you can only use it per card. So say I have 3 Gyram Lances on the field. I call one to the middle, whatever, you know the diff. I mean, you know this thing, because he becomes a size 1 if you have a Purgatory Knight as your buddy. So if there's a Purgatory Knight buddy, there's a size 1, so you can call 3 of them on the field. So I call one to my right, left, and center. I attack with the left. I attack with the center first, then I attack with the left kills off the center, then I attack with the right, and then I kill off the left, and then that was pretty much an 8 crit field. And then if you say have Purgatory Blade Fatal, Purgatory Sword Fatal, whatever, then since you destroyed in order to fulfill the effect, this also gets an extra critical, so you can have an 11 crit field. Pretty great. And that only costs 1 gauge and 3 other cards. I know, that sounds pretty bizarre, but that goes on to the next con I have to talk about the deck, which is running out of resources really fast. Now, this usually only happens to people who try and rush too much with the deck. Joel already goes over in his video why that's a bad idea. But I'm going to address it here. You can't rush with this deck and expect to win all the time. You have to rush in the late game or mid game in order to hope that you're going to get it off. Because if you try early game and they start blocking or destroying any of your inhibitors, then you're fucked. And you can't get it back for a while unless you have the great drop zone interaction that you have in this card right here. Purgatory Knights Forever. Purgatory Knights Forever, you pay a gauge and you take 1 damage. And I'll get on to why to take 1 damage is such a good thing for this deck in a moment. But you put up to 2 monsters with Purgatory Knights in their card name from your drop zone into your hand. This is a really great card. This really helps you. And also, what I mean by damage effect inhibitors, there's also these 2 cards. This is good. This is shit. This is Red Dragon Shield, I guess, but worse. And then this is a Searcher card. Arise Knights of Blood Oath. You pay 2 gauge and you destroy a monster on your field with Purgatory Knights in its card name. If you do search your deck for up to 1 monster with Purgatory Knights in its card name, put it in your hand, shuffle your deck. Really great card in some ways, but sometimes it's not so good. But you can still get back the gauge that you think that 2 gauge might be too much with Crush That Body and Sustain Me. Normally, I would put a card like this as a pro, but I'm going to call this right now. This card itself can be more of a con. Now, yes, you're getting gauge for just using your effect inhibitors. Yes, that's great. But that's too much gauge. Read this carefully. When a monster with Purgatory Knights in its card name on your field is destroyed due to effects, that can be your own or your opponent, so if your opponent destroys it by an effect, then you still get gauge. But that's the problem. This always gets you gauge. You use way too much gauge, and you don't use too much gauge in this deck, so this card isn't too, what do I want to say, necessary in playing 4 of, like, or 3 of, like, Thunder Formation. It does get you back on your feet, because if your life hits 0 and you put this card in a drop zone, reveal the top card and discard it, and if it's a spell, your life becomes 2, you can get back in the game. But the gauge is such an issue, because every time you destroy, you gain gauge, and it's mandatory. So you have to keep gaining gauge, and you're going to be losing cards to your deck that you want to draw into. Oh, speaking of drawing, this deck has pretty great draw power. There's cards like Abyss Symphony, obviously, in every Darkness Dragon World deck you want to make. But then they have their own cards. They have, where's his face? He's a size 1, I remember. Here he is. Evil Glaive Dragon. During the battle phase, when this card is destroyed by the effect of a monster, aka Demios and Garum Lance, then you can draw a card. This is your Dragon Archer clone. Though he is not 2/2/2, he is 3/1/3, and he's got pretty decent stats for 3/1/3, and you still get to draw for using the effect, for getting destroyed. And if you are looking for your 2/2/2, he's right here in the form of Purgatory Knights, Lunacy Wand Dragon. So this is another effect of the pros that I would mention, which is definitely the effect abusers. The effect abusers are cards like this: Lunacy Wand, Evil Glaive, like I've shown before, and then there's also a few other cards like Angry Hand. So these cards are cards that actually do something when they're actually destroyed by these guys' effects. So they allow you to actually put to good use while you're destroying off your cards for OTK potential. Which also brings me on to the next pro of the deck, which happens to be its great damage output. With cards like Garum Lance and Demios around, of course this deck would have a great damage output. But then what about the other monsters? Well, if you feel like it, you can play Blood Axe, who has 3 critical but shit stats. You have a really great, decent 2 critical with Mad Halberd, who also has move, which is very helpful. You got your little Systemic Dagger clone. This guy's shit. Not talking about him. You got Curse Phalanx, who's also an item/spell destruction, which also contributes to its next pro. Pretty great item/spell destruction in this deck, because you do have Guillotine Cutter, you have this, you have Angry Hand. Angry Hand, where are you? Angry Hand, and the other guy, Swordbreaker. This guy's shit though in some ways, but he's still pretty decent, I guess. In terms of draw power, like I said a little bit earlier, that I just like didn't get onto because I kept thinking about other cards. But Life Dwells in the Flames of Hades 2 is a card where if you are dealt damage on your opponent's turn, you can use this to draw 1 card, and then if you have a card of Purgatory Knights in its card name on the field, then you can draw another card. So, say your opponent attacks for 2 when there's a Demios on the field. You cast this, you draw 2. You don't have to play this at the same tendency as Abyss Symphony, because that would be too much space wasted in your deck, but you can go ahead and do stuff like that. One thing I find really, really bad about the deck, though, is their bad defense. This is due to apparent that, like, they just don't have anything to save their monsters outside of Dark Energy, so once their monsters are gone, they're just like, pfft. And then even so, their monsters' defenses are awful. You got 2,000 defense, 2,000 defense, well, no, 3,000. Then got like 2/2, like a bunch of really bad defense monsters. The only ones who have decent defense are Mad Halberd, and that's just a given because he's a Halberd Dragon clone for Purgatory Knights. And then you got Malice Force, who I can admit is a decent boss monster, but he's not a pro in his own manner because he's not so great. But I can really admit this deck has decent nulls, just like everything in Darkness Dragon World. Just because they have Black Dragon Shield, Midnight Shadow, if you feel like it, Death Shield. So they have cards that nullify attacks plenty of, so they may have bad defense as monsters, but they have a pretty good defense in terms of their nullifiers. And then they also have good monster removal with Death Grip, because monster removal, and Death Shield, and Sudden Death, in case you want to call those also cards you would run. Other than that, these guys just have, I think, decent stats, and that's also the last pro of this deck. Like, just decent stats all around. You got lots of 6Ks, you got Demios, you got Gyrum Lance, you got Halberd, you got Troubadour right here, and then you have like the other 8K body with Malice Force, but everything else is like 2, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, and like the occasional 5K with like garbage cards. Well, not garbage. Silver Staff is okay, I guess. The last, no, it's definitely not the last, but like another con about the deck is they're really, really bad against walls. This is only due to like their pretty decent stats because they don't have anything that just jumps out of threshold besides Malice Force when it comes to the 6K line, so they always have to link attack a lot. So Seeger can deal with them, Ritter can deal with them somewhat. Well, Ritter's not, yeah, Ritter can deal with them. But like, they just don't have the best matchups against wall decks, but they do have a card right here that helps them very much in it, but it doesn't single-handedly stop it. Like, it lowers the defense by 2,000, so it makes them their 6K attacks really, really good against it, but it won't do too much. And then their monsters are very removable. Everything is hit by almost everything is hit by Ancient World standard removal. Like, lots of 2,000 defense that you can just get hit by Dragon Flaming Cascades and all that shit. But they just have really, really, like, weak stats in terms of sense. And then, like, everything gets Death Gripped, obviously, and everything can get, and most of the things can get Dragonic Thundered and such. Like, I may not show them often here, but, like, because I don't skip through them too much when I just kept flipping through the monsters, but, like, Crossbow and Knuckle Dust are pretty great size 0 options, but, like, this gains more gauge that you don't need, and then this thing's just a decent 2 critical. So, it's just that this deck has its flaws, but I can definitely say, for my final verdict, Purgatory Knights is a great deck. Probably going to be at least top tier in most, like, I can say, maybe 3/8 of the world in terms of Buddyfight, but in terms of Buddyfight challenges, but like I don't think they're gonna do amazingly well because every deck once they figure out these flaws of the deck, then they can easily take advantage of it and then beat this deck down. But they're nowhere near a bad deck. Hope you guys like this video. Subscribe to TBIJalen for more Buddyfight content. Like I said, please also subscribe to Hunter Surge because he puts out really great content almost every day, and he does his best with all his videos, and they're very informative and get you very, very close to a competitive threshold on building your decks. So if you want to learn how to become more of a better, I can say, deck builder, or understanding your deck a little more and not just the flaws of them and the benefits of them, you can definitely look for any of Hunter Surge's videos and in the basics and others such as it. But with that, I'm going to end this video here. Hope you guys like this video. Subscribe to bringing for more Buddyfight content. Like I said, comment down below what you want to see in the next episode, and I'll see you guys later. Jalen from Team Ring Infinity going out.